Knowing it would be hard to conceal my role in the Communist Party, there was a huge chance if we failed to win, I would have to go underground, which meant the end of my academic career. In this stormy atmosphere, our department somehow managed to maintain its equanimity. The senior professors disagree with the left, of course, but they would not debate us in public, preferring the routine of dishing out conventional wisdom to bored and increasingly skeptical students. Dr. Ampalo was the exception. He engaged us in public debates. He never missed a chance to dissent. His passionate voice enlivened every open forum. Because we were often locked in impassioned arguments, some colleagues thought we were enemies. In fact, we enjoyed those altercations and never allowed our friendship to be eroded. But our debates did not contribute to the advancement of political science because we were always using different wavelengths. Dr. Ampalo insisted on his organic hierarchical paradigm, which naughty students called the Amphallic theory, while I obstinately insisted on the dialectical framework. He perceived the political system as analogous to the human body, with all parts functioning in harmony, while I viewed it as an arena of class struggle. We painted caricatures of each other's positions and criticized the caricatures. Truly enervating was the debate within the left. The Maoists and the pro-Soviet faction to which I belonged to started from the same fundamental assumptions, but we inflated our differences to score propaganda points. I don't think anybody found enlightenment from our quarrels over arcane issues like the primacy of the armed struggle, whether the social base of imperialism is semi-feudal or capitalist, whether one divided into two or two combining into one is the recipe for cooking up a united front. Our vacuous debates illustrated the paradox that Marxism as a theory suffers from the success of Marxism as a movement. Wherever the prospect of victory looms, organizational rivalries blunt the cutting edge of revolutionary theory. Ideas turn into inflexible dogmas. 2 years in prison provided me ample time for critical reflection. I was full of new ideas on how to conduct the revolution when I got out of prison. But alas, some of my comrades had been eliminated by enemies, and so the group which could have been the vehicle for putting these ideas into practice had disintegrated. Without an organization, I retreated to the periphery of the movement. The only sensible course of action was to focus on one's academic career. Soon, however, administration diverted me from scholarship. Being dean of UP's largest and most troublesome college under conditions of martial law was a test of Machiavellian skills. I had to maneuver between two intransigent forces, the student militants on one hand and the minions of Marcos on the other. Since I sympathized with their cause, I encouraged the student militants to fight, but I also had to keep their militancy within the bounds of tolerance. Otherwise, the dictatorship would have an excuse to attack the institution. The EDSA euphoria momentarily blurred my perception of reality. In 1986 to 1987, I portrayed EDSA as an authentic democratic revolution. I argued that Marcos had wrecked the old order beyond repair. Therefore, the successor regime would have to build a distinctly Filipino political system based on the concept of people's power. Cory's class background and the composition of her cabinet did not matter. They had to respond to a historical imperative. It did not take long for reality to dispel the euphoria. In 1988, the trajectory was emerging in abundant clarity. Blessed by the Americans and backed by the Ramos faction of the military, the Cory regime was successfully restoring the oligarchic system with its pseudo-democratic facade, a legacy of colonial rule which Marcos promised but failed to destroy. Had I been consistent in dialectical reasoning, I should have known that simply replacing Marcos with Cory, or one faction of the elite with another, would not set in motion the process of system change. System change requires decisive actions to disempower the oligarchs and empower the masses, a decisiveness Cory sadly lacked. Giving the masses the right to vote does not empower them for as long as the structures of elite rule were left intact. Another point in the evolution of my political perspective was when the UN University offered me a grant to join an international research project on the military in politics. In connection with that project, I studied instances of military intervention in several countries. I learned of military leaders who initiated the revolutionary process in collaboration with mass movements. Mustafa Kemal Pasha of Turkey, General Lázaro Cárdenas of Mexico, Colonel Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, Major Otelo Saraiva Carvalho of Portugal, and recently we had Colonel Hugo Chavez of Venezuela. I saw the embryo of such a phenomenon emerging in the Philippines when I met the leaders of the Young Officers Union, especially Danilo Lim, a West Point soldier intellectual who was then a captain of the Scout Rangers Regiment. Soon after the end of my term as UP President, another political storm started brewing, and I could not resist getting involved. The mass organizations and the rebellious soldiers were converging to oust Gloria Macapagal Arroyo through extra-constitutional means. For taking part in that failed effort, I was charged of rebellion with 49 military officers and civilian activists. 2 years later, the detained Bangdalo boys asked me to join their walkout. I doubted the wisdom of marching to Manila Pen and staging a press conference in a 5-star hotel. I thought it would have been smarter for Danilo Lim and Antonio Trillanes, not the entire group, to go underground and hold a clandestine press conference. But they were determined to move the next day. Despite my misgiving, I marched with them. For that, I earned another rebellion charge. The state prosecutors granted me temporary release on the ground I was already 72 years old. That reminder of one's age forced me to accept the disagreeable truth that I am too old to remain an activist. But it was time to shift to the role of an armchair political analyst. I still yearn for those days when we would create system-shaking events. But the political analyst, in the comfort and serenity of his cubicle, can only watch and speculate. I do not regret having crossed the boundaries of conventional political science. To paraphrase Dr. Alfalo, there is need for adventurers to explore the unfamiliar and try out the untested. The fact that the heroic adventure fails to produce the desired results does not prove its futility. A failed experiment does not nullify its scientific value, but is merely a stepping stone for new experiments. In the history of political thought, we don't dismiss Plato because he failed to find a philosopher king, or discard Machiavelli because in the end he was reduced to an unarmed prophet. Failure, critically analyzed, sheds light on aspects of reality that the timid and the conventional are prone to miss. But a keynote talk is inadequate to spell out the lessons learned in 6 decades of political tumult. That will have to wait for the book I'm trying to finish before old age disables my brain.